I'm moving out. I'm moving out from my boyfriend's house. I'll just put it out there. And we're friends. He and I are very, very good friends. And we always will be good friends. But after over a year, I've been living here. And things really haven't grown. They're kind of still at the same point as they were when I first moved in, as far as the relationship. You know, living with someone, those of you who have lived with someone know that the romance and the excitement is all in the beginning, and then you got to start living with the person's quirks and their little habits and their personal habits, and they have to live with yours too. And you just got to learn, if you're going to stay with the person, you have to learn to tolerate their habits or not. If it gets to a point where you can't stand each other's habits anymore, personal habits, personality habits, everything about the person that you don't see in the first, and even though this was an ex-boyfriend that I knew from the 1990s, we hadn't been together in such a long time that we'd forgotten all the little things that annoyed us and why we broke up in the first place. So they're back, and on top of that, to be honest, it's not really that as much as, how to put this, he has a son. He has a teenage son. And teenagers are hard in general, no matter who you're with. If you're living with someone who has kids that are not your kids, there's always that added stress too. So, anyway, we talked about it. And so it was all fine. We were friends. We decided maybe we would still, keep hanging out sort of unofficially or something. We weren't sure where it was going. But what was decided was that I was moving out, and we both were in agreement. It was my choice. It was always my, I brought it up, and he said, well, if that's what you want. He was we're friends. That's what makes it so much easier. But anyway, I rented a nice apartment and a cute little studio, what I can afford. I'm a secretary. I earn a decent secretarial wage. And fortunately, I'm still working remotely through this Corona crisis. So I still am getting my paycheck. Anyway, but before the Corona crisis and everything shut down, I had rented a little apartment down the street, actually. It's just like a mile down the road. So I even was convenient whenever I felt like coming and seeing my ex-boyfriend. I guess he is going to be officially my ex-boyfriend now. All right, long story short, I moved into the apartment. It was already like they were having us work from home by then. Now, when I rented the apartment, none of this had erupted yet. When I rented the apartment in mid-February, I was planning to move mid-March. There was an apartment that became available middle of the month. I need a sip of coffee. I just woke up. Listen to those beautiful birds. I'm cooped up inside when spring is here. It's hard. I'm by the window now. Anyway, where'd I put my coffee? All right, so I rented the apartment mid-February. I packed my things. I was going to, fortunately, since he and I are on good terms and we're still friends, I moved a good amount of my stuff, and then I was going to continue moving and throwing out things that accumulate when you live in a place. You always accumulate things that you don't need. So I said, this is a good chance to do spring cleaning, clean out move my things out, throw out a lot of things that I really don't need that, like I said, accumulated. So it was going well. I had moved most of my, I didn't have furniture, actually. Robert needed to get rid of some furniture. So he gave me some, and it was perfect. Yeah, there's a little mattress, and there's a table, just enough to start out. A table, a mattress, some silverware, some cups and plates, just little extras that he doesn't, he has too much of. So, I started out all set, had my computer over there, connected the internet, and that's when, like, towards the end of February, early March, the Corona crisis was just beginning, but they still hadn't shut down. So, and I was ready to go. I was like, okay, I'm going to start sleeping over here. So the first day that I moved, that I was working in my new little studio apartment, everything was going well. I was probably going to spend the first night of the entire time there. My ex-boyfriend calls me, my current, whatever. He said, look, they're announcing this shutdown. You're not going to be able to leave except to go to the supermarket. So, I know you just moved in there, but if you want to come back here for the crisis, for this shutdown, you could do that. Or if you want to stay there, maybe I could take you some stuff. Really sweet. That shows what a good friend I'm so fortunate. So yeah, I completely caved. I was this independent. I felt very independent. First time supporting myself since I don't know how long. I've lost count how many years I've been living off of people. Either my parents or my boyfriend or kind friends who would take me out because I didn't have much money. And I still managed to save, fortunately because I was living with my parents, I didn't have to pay rent or bills or anything, so I was able to save and take trips, and I went to Argentina, and so I had a few lucky years. That's all I can say. I was lucky probably because I was fortunate to have family and friends and people who just let me stay without paying. It probably delayed me even more in getting, in finding a steady job, and not so much steady job, but one that would pay a living wage. I had that nice job that I really loved in Miami. I would have stayed forever, but I couldn't earn enough money to live, to move out. It was, but anyway. Well, long story short, so I'm back here at my ex-boyfriend's house for the duration of this crisis, and I'm afraid to go to the apartment because that's a building with a lot of people in it, and the building claims that they're taking the steps to be careful, and they're, making sure everything is clean and the bacteria and they're practicing the caution they're supposed to be, from what I can tell, but still, it's a lot of people in one building. So here I figured, okay, it's just the three of us. It's my boyfriend, his son, and I, and we're a little bit, less people. And then my boyfriend, my ex-boy, see, I'm even calling my boyfriend. I may as well call my boyfriend while I'm still here, but, he'll go out and buy food and come back. He doesn't stay out there, so... And I'm a homebody anyway, so it's not that hard for me as it's been for some people, this shutdown I'm seeing. This is a time where people are feeling very alone, especially if you're someone... See, I had my own little studio apartment, and I was afraid to stay alone. So some people happen to be living alone, and they are alone. And, if you have internet and phone... at least, you can text people and communicate and chat online. And so it's definitely not as bad as maybe as it was in, when was it, the 13 or 1400s, the bubonic plague? Imagine those people, they couldn't leave the house. They were in quarantine probably. It must have been a disaster. No way to communicate rapidly what was going on like we have today. So we have to be very grateful that in spite of this horrible disease that's going around the world has the internet. Many people have the internet. But that brings me to this issue. There are people that don't have internet, that don't have access to communication, to help their fears, talk to someone about your fears, to be honest with you, and, I've been saying how I feel so much better now that I found God and all this stuff, but I had a panic attack one night. It was just before I moved. The crisis was already picking up. We were working remotely. They hadn't announced the shutdown yet. But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to move. There's this disease out there. It's the first time I'm supporting myself in years. And to be honest, I've never been that good at supporting myself. When I first graduated college, I had this little studio apartment that I had this little job. And things were a little easier back then, too. Like, what I earned as a hotel clerk at the time, one of my first jobs, I could afford a studio apartment. And I was earning minimum wage. That was in D.C. as well. There are people that don't have phones, don't have cell phones, There are older people older than me that don't know how to use the internet. And we forget that. And even myself, I was right on that verge of the generation that just barely made it into understanding computers. Because it was just when I was in college, high school, mainly college, it was just the very beginning of email. at that time I was thinking, yeah, it's kind of clunky and slow. It's just easier to pick up the phone. I didn't see necessarily the benefit of emailing at that time. You know, it was still sort of like, oh, that's cool, haha, that's funny. You can write a little note to your friend, and you know, you didn't. Now I can't believe, especially as a secretary, I can't believe that I never realized how useful the internet would end up being, especially for administrative work and internet, you know, computers in general, word processing and Excel sheets and all these software programs. So anyway, and even people from my own generation are not as knowledgeable about the computer. Some of them aren't as much as I am. And then after me, yeah, it was just common. Everybody, you know, even in school now, I think I was a little bit surprised. Even kids in school now, instead of notebooks, they have iPads to take their notes. And kids have cell phones. And so this facility of communication that's available to most American youth for sure, United States youth. You know, even very poor people in the U.S. can have a cell phone. Even homeless people have cell phones in the United States. It's almost like a cell phone is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. I never went on welfare because I didn't need to. Again, I always had family. I always had someone helping me. So it never even occurred to me to try to get some kind of benefit. But had I not had family or help from around me, most likely I would have gone to a food pantry or some kind of a welfare plan until I could find a decent job. I wasn't probably living in the best state for finding work. Maybe I didn't. I was depressed, so I probably didn't try as hard as I should have as well. I was kind of depressed, the divorce. I was, trying. I kind of already knew by that age that wasn't going to resolve my problems, but I guess I was thinking if I would just find a boyfriend who loved me, we could struggle together, and, so I was kind of dating all these stupid people on the dating sites, and I will never do that again. I don't think at this age I would. There are people my age still on those sites. I think if I am going to be single again, actually, I guess. I'm moving to my studio. I'm not doing the dating again. I'm not doing the dating sites. Maybe I'll find someone, or maybe I'll meet someone just by coincidence. If I don't, that's fine. As you know, my opinion on men and women at this age, men have a lot better luck at this age than women do. Listen to the birds a little bit, and then I'll end this until I come up with a bed. I started a little garden. I'll take a few pictures of my garden. That's my butternut squash, which it looked so nice, but then we got like a few days of cold and it got a little crinkly. So let's hope that lives. It was like in the 50s. What's that? Oh, that's a seed from last year that didn't work out. There's a few. All right. But anyway, here I accidentally left a potato from last year, remember? So, yeah, look at this. I'm moving out, but my boyfriend's letting me use his backyard for my garden. So here's some potatoes growing out that I forgot that I had potatoes in there last year, and I guess they didn't grow last year. Or maybe there were potatoes that grew that I had not pulled out of the ground. I hadn't found them. So, there's my potato. I'm going to make this prettier. And then I had planted these last year, but these are annuals. Oh, this fell down. I had it up there for the birds. But anyway, that's a piece of celery. I had planted these last year, but these are perennials. So they popped up again this year. So that was a nice surprise. This is where I had the tomatoes last year. And here's an apple tree. No, that's not an apple tree. This is an apple tree. These are 2 apple trees right in there. I had thrown some apple cores. So we'll see. I'm going to keep those in a pot, though. Maybe make some apple bonsais. And then this one I just thought was pretty. It's a common, I think it's a weed or something, or a decorative plant, but I like that pretty little flower, so I thought I'd keep it in this cute little, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I like small, little, My bonsai that I had in Miami, if some of you remember, I went back to visit. My father had planted it into the ground and made it into a regular tree. So he took it out of the way to keep bonsai small, you keep them squished in a teeny pot so they kind of get stunted. But he just made it into a regular tree.